There are a couple of schools of thought when it comes to character builds that are capable of breaking video games. You either think they're completely pointless and don't understand why anyone would want to use them and break their own game, or you think there's some talent to being able to discover them and pull off said build, for which you've totally earned it if you manage to do it. Love them or hate them, character builds capable of breaking video games are an inevitability with any RPG or strategy game that gives you different gear, ability, and specialization options. There's an art to discovering how to best exploit the systems of any given game, and the clever players who worked out the following 10 builds absolutely figured that out. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 character builds that broke video games. Number 10. Power Bounce, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Paper Mario probably wasn't the first game you thought you'd hear about in this list detailing a bunch of expertly crafted and carefully constructed builds designed to break games, but the build is there, and boy is it effective. In short, Power Bounce is broken, and if you want to rampage through this one, then pair it with Charge and make Mario the destructive force he was always meant to be. Power Bounce is a badge that lets you continuously jump on an enemy so long as you can execute the action command perfectly. It's relatively cheap to use, and if you can pull off the command timing, you'll be able to do a huge chunk of damage, especially if you set yourself up a couple of turns ahead of time. Pairing it with the Charge badge, which buffs Mario's next attack, makes this even more effective, especially as everything stacks. Execute everything just right, and you should be one-shotting bosses. Not bad for a little mustachioed plumber in overalls. Number 9. Euphoria build, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Once you crack into all the options that mutations, mutagens, and decoctions unlock in The Witcher 3 beneath your base stats, you'll notice that the RPG systems are rife with opportunities to create game-breaking builds. One of the most popular are the Euphoria builds, which are built around the incredibly useful Euphoria mutation. This makes each point of toxicity increase the damage you deal with swords and sign intensity, which, if you haven't played The Witcher 3, will make no sense, and if you have, is understandably very cool. Pair the mutation with 4 greater red mutagens to boost your attack power and then up your toxicity tolerance. Activating skills that enhance your ability to get real toxic and equip the Manticore armor, which does the same thing, and you'll have a huge toxicity capacity, which you should then max out with decoctions. Then you get the bonus of those decoctions plus the enormous damage buffs. There are plenty more tweaks you can make beyond this point, but in short, enjoy being nigh on unstoppable. Number 8. Lone Wolf Necromancer, Divinity Original Sin 2. Sure, Divinity Original Sin 2 is playable in co-op, but would you rather have friends to play with or be an all-powerful necromancer who can best every enemy and difficulty setting that this game has to throw at you? Assuming it's the latter, stay tuned for this one. This build is designed for an elf, human, or undead, and was put together by YouTube user SinT. You'll want to go all in on intelligence and memory early on, and spec into summoning, warfare, and scoundrel as well, which boost physical damage dealt and your critical multiplier. Later on, you'll respec into Necromancer, and you'll be able to pull off feats like executing a supercharger-enhanced bloated corpse explosion, which creates a blood pool and will basically kick off every engagement with a plus 100% damage boost bang. The Lone Wolf attribute is particularly important though, as that will give you an increase to loads of stats, allowing you to tailor a specific build better. Also, your friends will hate you because you'll be killing everything in one turn. There are loads of other abilities you'll want to pick up, gears to maximize how good this build can be, and of course you'll want to be mindful of your tactics, but trust me, this will get the job done. Number 7. Alchemic Carbine and Hokuto's Bow, Dead Cells. A famous entry in the genre of games that are challenging in the best possible way, Heaps.io's 2018 roguelike Dead Cells leaves plenty of room for experimentation. And where there's room for experimentation, there's plenty of room to discover game-breaking builds. Dead Cells has a lot of great builds in this category, but this one, which matches up some particularly deadly gear, is one of the best. You'll want to pair the Alchemic Carbine bow, which comes packed with poison bolts, with the Hokuto's bow, which marks enemies, causing them to take extra damage for 15 seconds. Additionally, once they die, the mark spreads. The bow supercharges the crossbow, and you can pile on turrets or grenades here to become even more lethal. One of the best things about this build is that it's relatively safe to execute damage, and you can pair the combo with the flamethrower and oil grenade for extra stopping power. This is especially useful against mobs and bosses, and can be paired with any of the mutations, but Heart of Ice, Gastronomy, and Necro work best for biomes, and you'll want to swap those out for bosses. Your preference will depend on your playstyle, but whichever way you go, you can file this one away into the OP builds category. Number 6. Adept, Mass Effect. There's an argument to be made that the most overpowered build in the original Mass Effect is the Soldier class, where you can spam immunity and overkill, but no one can deny that biotics were basically gods before they were rebalanced for the remainder of the trilogy. If the aesthetics alone of making every bad guy and piece of furniture float around like it's nothing doesn't scratch that itch, the decimation you bring to every room you walk into should. Popping barrier and unleashing singularity, lift, warp, throw, and stasis on your foes essentially incapacitates them. Especially because biotics ignore shields, there's very few things that can stand up against you. The Adept class is particularly good because it reduces the cooldown of biotic powers and ups biotic protection, meaning you're a very short road away from being a total god. If you want to up the cool ante, you can team up with Caden and Liara, your biotic power-wielding companions, and just unleash biotic hell on anybody who looks at you sideways. Number 5. Devaston Samurai, Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk 2077 gives you loads of customization options to tailor your V just how you'd like them. This extends from their aesthetics to some incredibly deep RPG mechanics that provide a ton of opportunities for some killer game-breaking builds. While the hardcore netrunner and the shotgun-toting berserk tech builds are both brilliant, we'll be highlighting the Devaston Samurai. This is a build that capitalizes on the Devaston implant, which lets you slow down time, as well as the raw stopping power of the ninjutsu skills. You'll want to pick up the Jinshu Mara Katana or the Satori, depending on which you intend to build on using your abilities and stats. The Satori is impressive due to its enormous critical hit damage perk, while the Jinshu Mara has 3 perks, which, when combined, let you deal 4 times the damage with an assured critical hit. Pile on perks that increase melee damage, blades, and athletic skills, and you'll basically be carving everybody up before they can even get their sights on you. Number 4. Stealth Archer, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. A build so broken it became a meme is absolutely a build we will not be ignoring on this list. So whether you've heard about it a million times or this is the first time you'll have the pleasure, let me run you through Skyrim's stealth archers. Or more accurately, they'll run everybody else through, silently, because of the stealth archery, the killing. Let's keep going. Illusion mages and conjuration devotees may also have a fun and extremely broken time, not to mention going all in on that reliable smithing and enchanting loop, but stealth archery is a classic. You'll be leveling up really fast just by committing to this playstyle, as the associated skills just grow incidentally. And in general, archery is just completely overpowered in Skyrim. The wild damage multiplier for attacking in stealth and the ease with which you can just pop off a bunch of headshots without anybody knowing you were there is as effective as it is extremely satisfying. The best part of this build is that even players who decide they're going to go all in on conjuration generally end up conjuring up bows and falling down that stealth archer hole anyway. Number 3. Drunk Fu Brawler, Wasteland 3. For the uninitiated, Wasteland was Fallout before Fallout was Fallout, but fans had to wait 6 years for the third entry in the RPG franchise. Luckily, the wait was worth it, not just because Wasteland 3 is awesome, but also because the RPG mechanics and customization options are super extensive. Fortunately for us, that means there are a good handful of fun, albeit pretty broken builds for you to exploit if you so choose. One of these is the Drunk Fu Brawler, which is as enjoyable to play as it is for me to say out loud. The beauty of brawling here is that once you've hit level 10 in this combat style, it only costs 1 action point to pull off a brawling attack, which is pretty important in this turn-based combat game where AP is everything. Sink all your points into strength, coordination, speed, and either luck or intelligence, and opt for the lethal weapon background that gives you a melee damage bonus, and you're already gonna be pretty dangerous. Piling on top the Way of the Squeezins quirk, and you'll get yourself a 50% damage boost while you're drunk. So enjoy being a boozed up brawling little menace. Number 2, the world's greatest assassin, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Sure, with the migration over to the RPG genre, Assassin's Creed made it so you don't actually have to be an assassin anymore if you don't want to. But when the builds get this OP, why wouldn't you? YouTuber T7PDM created this particular build based on the latest update to the game, and it's so lethal the stats speak for themselves. The build lets you do over 30 million points of damage with the right abilities, but even a basic hit will net you 4 million points of damage. The base assassin damage for this build before you even add on any gear or weaponry is 1.8 million, which is just brain-breaking. Combine the 200% damage bonus you get from the Corfu engraving with the 100% you get from the hunter damage conversion, and that sets you up nicely to unleash Ares Madness, which is a hideously overpowered ability that should sate anyone who thought Cass wasn't quite godly enough. Hero Strike is still a fantastic ability to have loaded up in your arsenal too, as is assassination-oriented gear, but the build is largely designed to maximize your critical hit damage and take advantage of the great avenues the game gives you to min-max into certain playstyles. As with every entry on this list, I sadly don't have time to run you through the entire build, but if you need it, you know where to find it. Number 1. Rivers of Blood, Elden Ring. This one was finally nerfed in the 1.06 patch for Elden Ring, so you know it was good. Bleed is still a totally effective tactic in one of 2022's very best video games, which also happens to be riddled with broken builds. But let me walk you through the heyday of Rivers of Blood. Now, it shouldn't come as a huge surprise that one of the very best weapons you can pick up to do bleed damage in Elden Ring is called Rivers of Blood. But for the uninitiated, this is an absolutely wildly deadly katana. A super fast attack speed and range on top of both hemorrhage buildup and a respectable stack of physical damage sets you up for success even before you consider the unique weapon skill Corpse Piler. Corpse Piler lets you execute a series of successive slashes, which each leave behind trails of blood, increasing the range of the attacks. You'll deal both physical damage and fire damage with blood buildup per hit. On the stat side, you'll want to prioritize arcane and dexterity, but don't ignore vigor, mind, or endurance, as you'll need each of these to fend off blows and make the most of your Corpse Piler combos. It's also a good idea to dual wield with the Uchi Katana or Naga Kiba with the Seppuku skill applied, at which point anyone in front of you who still has blood in them won't for very much longer. Couple this with the White Mask and slot talismans like the Lord of Blood's Exaltation, which both buff your attack stats after you've inflicted blood loss, and you'll be good to go. Do all of the above and you'll become one of the infamous bleeders that everybody hates in PvP. That's the end of our list, but let me know down in that comment box if you can think of any other character builds that broke video games. As always, I've been Jess from WhatCulture. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you like, you can come say hi to me on my Twitter account where I'm at Jess McDonald, but make sure you stay tuned to us here for plenty more great gaming lists.